Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RealClearPolitics Takeaway for Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief.
Happy New Year, Carl.
Happy New Year, Tom. It's here in Washington that we've got snow on the ground. It's actually sticking because it's cold. It's quite beautiful, although, as you know, the snow, I've lived here 30 years. They've never figured out how to handle snow and everything's closed. But
I saw the nightmare story about the folks who were trapped in their cars on I-95 for 11 or 12 hours overnight, which reminded me of how bad you guys are at driving in snow. And
well,
why would people be on the roads anyway, unless they absolutely had to be?
Well, I don't know. I've got to get to the bottom of that one. Those are truck drivers, apparently, who got in that wreck. Professional drivers. You think they'd know better. People, look, that's the main artery from Maine to Florida, Tom. There's always going to be cars on it. People are going for their vacations, coming home, whatever they're doing. But you just don't expect, the government not to figure out some way to get that traffic unsnarled. You had people in their car, some of them 15 hours with pets, children. They ran out of gas. They have no water. It was
bad situation.
Yeah, that's in Virginia. That's Stafford County.
Not
that's on Ralph Northam's watch. That's not Muriel Bowser's fault.
All right, listen, Carl, it is the new year, so let's refocus on what's going on in Washington. We've got the Biden administration coming off what can only be described as a rough year in terms of a rough first year, dealing with COVID, which we're still dealing with this month and into this year. Also, inflation's still out there. Democrats, there was a story today in the Hill, they're going to take a pause on trying to get Build Back Better done. But Chuck Schumer announced that they will move forward, apparently, with potentially a vote suspending the rules in the Senate and possibly doing away with the legislative filibuster in order to pass voting rights. What do you make of this?
They've switched from, this massive social spending to voting procedures. The press and we talk about voting rights, but that's not quite right. Voting is a right in this country. These are procedures of how to run elections. And as you know, Tom, the Democrats say the racist Republicans are trying to tamp down the minority votes so they can win. Republicans say that, well, we're just trying to make sure that the people who vote are actually, they're not voting twice and they're legal. And
they say that,
and they're legal voters.
Right. Democrats, the laws the Democrats want to pass will, ban voter ID, encourage ballot harvesting, and all of these terrible things for democracy. So,
well, yeah, but Tom, you and I have talked about this before. In a functional democracy, these two political parties could say, okay, here's the goal. We want to make it easy to vote. We want to make sure the vote has integrity. We put a man on the moon, decades ago. We could probably figure this out. I don't think. Yeah, I'm not sure they really want to solve the problem.
Do you think that's going to, what would be the consequences of doing away with the filibuster? There was a clip of Chuck Schumer flying around the internets yesterday where I think 3 years ago, Carl, he was arguing that this was a vital part of the Senate's tradition and minority rights in the Senate, and to do away with it would be just a catastrophe. And now here he is arguing, and much of the Democratic Party is arguing that this is a relic of Jim Crow. It is getting in the way of the majority passing laws that voters want, and that's why they put him in office. What would be the consequence of this?
Well, I can think of a few. The Senate's arcane procedures are not in the Constitution. They want to change the rules, they can. But if you think Chuck Schumer got whiplash from 3 years ago, wait until next January when he is again saying they need the filibuster.
He's the minority leader of the Senate.
Mitch McConnell's the majority leader. I mean, the cynicism of these people beggars belief. The other possibility is it might send Joe Manchin into the Republican Party. The Democrats seem hell-bent on doing that for reasons that escape me. But having said all that, if I was a liberal senator in the Senate and 50 senators were Democrats and Kamala Harris was the tiebreaker and I couldn't get anything through because of these rules, I would be frustrated. I understand that. What matters, I think, my guess is what matters to voters is what the Democrats want to do with it. They want to pack the Supreme Court. they'll, you'd think they'd pay a price. If they want to get through, early childhood education funding bill that a majority of Americans want, they probably wouldn't pay a price for it. So if they do this, then they have that power. And it depends, in my mind, how they wield it.
Let's touch on Omicron real quickly, Carl. It is, we're setting record case numbers across the country, but thankfully not increased death numbers. It seems like this variant escapes the vaccine. I mean, in my neighborhood, we live in a very highly vaccinated population, and everybody's got it. I mean, it's all over the place. It seems like it is one of the things. And I thought, Carl, I guess naively, that this would bring us together now that the vaccinated are getting Omicron and getting COVID, that there wouldn't be this otherization of folks who are unvaccinated. We're kind of all in this together. Let's figure it out. Doesn't seem to be the case. We have in our neighborhood and in other states around the country, certainly the rest of the state of Illinois, vaccine passport, or you got to show your vax card to be inside at restaurants, movie theaters, gyms, you name it. You have to show proof of vaccination. And we now have, our mayor was just on TV yesterday promoting the idea of we need to get everybody, all these kids vaccinated and boosted all the way down to 5 years old, which is something that the FDA is apparently on the verge of approving, which is obviously going to be something that it causes more anger, divisiveness between, a lot of parents who don't necessarily want to do that. So where's this headed, Carl? I thought it was going to bring us together, and instead it seems to be driving us further apart.
Well, I don't know that anything can solve the toxic hyperpartisanship that embodies our politics today. But in terms of the Omicron variant, if it squeezes out the Delta variant, which was just as lethal as what preceded it, and it's less lethal, this would be the best case scenario that scientists have talked about. And, people were ridiculed for talking about herd immunity, again, for partisan reasons, but this is what that would constitute. And we may still come together. The science, the virus may bring us together, even if our politicians can't. If we emerge from this the way they have in South Africa, where the Omicron's the dominant strain, and this crucible passes, Tom, I think Americans will be able to find some common purpose. But I wouldn't look to the politicians to effectuate it.
Why enforce mandates that exclude those who have natural immunity, exclude those who do not have vaccination, when in fact people who are vaccinated, double vaccinated and boosted, or triple vaccinated, if you want to say it that way, are getting and spreading this variant as much, if not more, than other parts of the population? Why would politicians do that?
Well, Tom, you know the reason. I mean, the rationale for it. The rationale for it is that the people who are vaccinated, this is the theory, and it seems to be true, although Omicron's, a month old, we're still finding things out. But what seems to be the case is that if you're vaccinated and boosted, the Omicron strain is less lethal and less likely to require hospitalization. And we can't have our hospitals packed with Omicron patients because we have hospitals, because all kinds of other people need to be in those hospitals and get medical care. That's the rationale. I get that. I also understand your objection to it. I have one of my granddaughters is 5 years old. Her parents vaccinated her. They didn't ask. She lives in Maryland. They didn't ask Larry Hogan. They didn't ask me. The parents made that decision. And I think most Americans can understand the difference between a parent making a decision and being mandated by the government. And when the government's telling you to do something with your body like that, there's going to be resistance even among the vaccinated. And you'd think Democratic Party would understand this, because ever since Roe v. Wade, they've framed the issue of abortion as a choice. My body, my choice. These compelling arguments about privacy, but they haven't applied it during this pandemic. And their rationale, again, is that the pandemic's transmissible. Abortion is not something contagious, and the coronavirus is. So that's where we are. And I'm just hoping Omicron sort of saves us from ourselves.
I think we're in for another long, tough year, unfortunately. And on that happy note, we will leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClear Politics.
Yeah, he's Eeyore, and I'm the cockeyed optimist. I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for RCP, and this has been the RealClear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, January 4th, 2022.